Thank you very much for that lovely introduction, Sangapurna. Delightful. And part of the delight being here tonight is being with so many friends who I've met through the Buddhist movement Triratna, and before that, of course, Friends of the Western Buddhist Order, and a number I've seen through to their ordination, through their training, and of course ordained Uppada in 2014. So it's a wonderful sense of occasion to have so many good friends around and new friends and even an occasional new face. But I think I know everyone here, which is delightful, and good to see friends from afar such as Sanjeeva. I think that is really one of the great benefits of being in one place for a long time, is that one gets to see and experience the whole trajectory of something special happening. When I first came to Melbourne in 1989 from London, where I'd met the FWBO then and met Sangharakshita in the mid-80s, I joined Buddhist and Guyavadra, Gunapala, Vidyavati and a couple of mitras here in Melbourne, as I was going to start to get things happening here. And in that year, we actually started some public classes in a little community centre just a block away from Bishop Street behind Sydney Road onto Carl Street. And some people still with us here in Melbourne, and those also some afar actually met us in those days. Padma City for one, of course, right here. And Amrita Shraddha I met at the Austin Hospital, and we heard a little bit about our intersection in her biography the other week, which was delightful. And so from those small seeds, we grew the Melbourne Buddhist Centre and to what it is now through a succession of chairs, initially Buddhadasa, and then myself, Siddhar, and now Dante Chitta, of course, and it's gone from strength to strength. And from those 20 years in Pitt Street, off Lygon Street, we've got that beautiful centre in David Street, which is just waiting for its doors to burst open again. But I'll step back a little bit and just to fill in a little bit of the background of my journey to the Dharma in brief, because mostly I want to focus on my order life, but an order life can't be an order life until you've got to the order. And it was as a young fellow in my teens, that I just had the existential questions of what the meaning of life, what it's all about. And I had a like-minded friend in school at the time, and we started to read all sorts of books and interest, psychology and mind, religion, philosophy, and so on. At the same time, dealing with all the other things an adolescent deals with at 14. So it was quite a tumultuous time internally. Fortunately, I could run and jump and play a lot and kick footballs, so that kept me out of mischief. And it wasn't until probably a year or two later when David, my friend in school, mentioned there were these Buddhist monks in Tibet crossing their legs and meditating. And as soon as he said that, I had some deep bell go off inside my heart and my psyche. And I knew that I had to meditate to know the mind, because I worked out that the source of everything a human can know must occur within one's mind. I'd at least got that far. But meditation just intuitively sounded like the way to know the mind. And if I know the mind, I can know life, existence in the universe. There's some intuitive current at play there. So I followed that in my reading and with David, and we got onto Buddhism, the Noble Eightfold Path, the life of the Buddha, and I became very excited. And certainly by my late teens, and by the time I entered university studying medicine in the 70s, I had determined that I was a Buddhist, and it was the Buddhist path I had to follow. But what I didn't have in Adelaide in those days in the 70s was a Buddhist centre or a teacher or any guide of any sort. The closest we had to meditation was what the Guru Maharaji brought to the Beatles and the Beach Boys, the transcendental meditation. But that actually had its value, because it was a simple technique and it sort of got me going with somewhere with the mind. And I had to wait, really. Even inquiries interstate, I didn't really find much in the way of Buddhism. So I had to wait until I got to London on a medical fellowship in 85. And as soon as I got to London, as soon as I almost just got into the digs of the hospital, I started looking for Buddhist centres. And I came across the London Buddhist Centre in a Time Out magazine in 1985. And I went through its doors at a beginner's class in May 1985. And that was very impressive. And I learned the mindfulness of breathing, met a lot of friendly people. The second week I went back, I felt as though I'd come home. I'd already found my spiritual home on the second visit. And so that began the best part of 4 years, where I became a mitra at the London Buddhist Centre, and with a partner at the time, then Catherine, she also became a mitra. And it got quite a momentum going, my going for refuge to the Three Jewels, my relationship with the order and the mitras there was very strong. I enjoyed everything we did there. I got to meet Banti a few times, the first time to say hello and thank you for everything. But I will remember one very important moment in my time at London regarding Sangharakshita, because I'd met a wonderful community. They're very friendly, honest, authentic people, seriously practicing, and also trying to be authentic human beings and nothing else but. I had the question behind my mind: who is this Sangharakshita? What is he all about? He's looked at with reverence and awe, yet he looked like a pretty standard sort of grandfatherly figure in his tweed coat and a tie, and walks slowly. I just had to figure that out, because having come through the 70s, there are all sorts of gurus floating around the world. You know, there's the Maharaji, and there's the Ananda Marga sect, and there's Guru, the Maharishi. There's all these different people, you know, claiming this, that, and the other. So I just really had to sort of get a feeling of where I sat with Sangharakshita and who he really was. So one night I was watching a video. It was an old VHS video playing of one of his talks he gave, and it was a very simple production. There was just two cameras on the man while he spoke at a lectern. He had a roller neck jumper on, the tweed coat and a kesa, and he was speaking about the taste of freedom. That's the name of the talk, the taste of freedom. And as I listened to the talk, and look, the whole room, the standing room only, well, you could have heard a pin drop. It was just such a riveting lecture. And halfway through the talk, there was a gravitas that descended upon me, where I had complete faith and trust that Sangharakshita was my teacher, and that he was deeply enmeshed in the Dharma, and I could trust what he said about the Dharma. So that was a pivotal moment. And then I had to ask the question, do I want to have a life in what was called the Western Buddhist order then, now Triratna? That was my next question. And it was about the same time that Catherine and I were, though living a wonderful life in London, I'd been there for nearly 4 years, and she longer. We'd felt we needed to go to a different place, maybe a smaller city, a bit more breathing room, a bit more walking room than London, amazing as it is. And as serendipity has it, I was offered, or I'd heard about a position in Melbourne with the Austin Hospital as a young neurologist to go and study epilepsy. And Catherine could get a job there too in the spinal unit as a physiotherapist. So a couple of phone calls and a fax later, we both had jobs at the Austin Hospital. And I broke the news to my friends at the London Buddhist Centre that we were heading to Melbourne. And they were a bit crestfallen because we were starting to, you know, really be part of the whole Sangha there. But I wanted to meet up with Buddhadasa, Giyavajra, and the other people, and work very closely with the order to see how it all goes, and to whether I could be a part of that order and still be a doctor, whether I could see our movement taking off in Melbourne. It had done in Sydney already by that time, in the 80s. And also my own relationship to my country and my family and my roots. I wanted to just touch base with all that and re-explore that. So Melbourne gave me the opportunity to address all those questions. It was 6 months into our time in Melbourne, or into my time in Melbourne, when I remember being close to the friendships amongst the order members there, particularly Giyavajra and Buddhadasa. And I realised now that this is what I want. I wanted that sort of friendship, because I'd enjoyed good friendships in my school days and university days. I knew what friendship was, and I knew that if that can be realised also in the spiritual life, then that's for me. And that's what I saw in my friends Giyavajra and Buddhadasa, was this deep friendship. And I thought, that's what I want. And so I wrote to Sangharashtra in those days, which we did, and said that I'd like to train for ordination. And he wrote back a lovely postcard, rejoiced in my merits of friendships with the order here. And he said, we'll see you back in England, which is what we did in those days. We went back to England to do our ordination training, because we didn't have ordination training programs established in Australia in the 80s. So I completed my epilepsy research here. I wrote a thesis. I was involved in the centre here. Amrita Shraddha was become a mitra. We had Rita visiting from India. She'd become a mitra. And things were just moving along. But I had to go back to England and train for ordination. So I left all these job offers here in Australia and set up in Cambridge, and Catherine came back with me. And so I started my ordination retreats, and I was invited in 1992 to go along to Guhyaloka in Spain with 26 other men, and I was ordained in June 1992. It was an amazing 4 months living in a monastic life with these other men and 6 very good and sure guides to who are our team of leading the retreat up in the mountains in southeast Spain. Subhuti was my preceptor. You might have heard of Subhuti. He's one of our senior members of our order here in Triratna. And I've actually opened up my ordination file this evening, and I found the letter he wrote to me in Guhyaloka, where he invited me to the private ordination and the public ordinations, because it wasn't guaranteed we were going to get ordained until about a month into the retreat. And then I got the letter, and all the other guys got the letter. So there was a lot of excitement in the valley. It was a remarkable 4 months. There's so much one could say about it. There's also a lot of things one probably shouldn't say about it, because they're personal and shared and so on. But something that I would consider as a highlight of my life, those 4 months, where one meets other people under the guidance of wise friendship, goes deeper into meditation, prolonged weeks of silence, regular and rigorous meditation, prostration practices, rituals of all sorts, time with friends, and a remarkably brisk psychic life where I dream all night, wake up from the dreams, and then start the prostration practice in the morning, and there'll be meditation practices and study groups, and it went on to the last ritual, the final 3 bells at night, go to bed and go to sleep, back into the dream bardo, and it started all over again. And that's the way it went for 4 months. So very rich time, and I'm glad I kept the diary. It's interesting, I had one strange mythical dream. There was many, but I had one strange mythical one I could not understand at all. And 19 years later, after my ordination, that dream came to mind again, and I suddenly understood exactly what it meant. As far as one can subjectively make such an assessment, it came to me 19 years later. So I say, after an interesting dream, stick around. So I spent the rest of that 2-year period, 92 to 90 and 93, in Cambridge with Catherine, and I went back to do a bit of part-time medicine in London while I was engaging in the order activities there in Cambridge and the centre, and did all sorts of retreats, met Banti again, of course. And then there came an important decision I made where I wanted to come back to help Buddhist in Melbourne flourish. I had connections here and so on. But also there came a parting of the ways with Catherine, because she was very keen for family and I wasn't so keen. So we had to make a decision finally to go separate ways on that. And that happened maybe a couple of years after I got back, after some long distance relationship times. So that was a very, very big thing. Fortunately, she did find a partner, has had 2 boys, and she's in the order as well. So that's been great. And we still remain good friends and are in regular touch. So I came back to Melbourne and carried on with Buddhadasa. And I think, like perhaps my character, some conditioning from my livelihood as well, one tends to say yes to everything. And it's very easy to get overcommitted. And when I look back on those years, particularly maybe the first 10, 15 years back in Melbourne as an order member, I was certainly overcommitted and overstretched. But having said all that, there was a lot of good things happened as well. And we had lots of great retreats and courses, and people came. And certainly feel that we welcomed just about everyone in, if not, or most people, if not everyone. And they had a fulfilling and rich time, no matter how long it was, with the centre. We had all sorts of innovations. We're doing camping retreats for the men 3 years in a row in Easter time. We went out to all these places under canvas and did practice. We played cricket on some of our retreats. That was good fun on the Sangha retreats. There's all sorts of things happening. Got a regular stream of overseas visitors, which is good as well. It was certainly quite a juggle, managing a professional life as a medical specialist with teaching hospital, public and private practices, then my country practice in Bendigo as well. Often I was living in community with other men and other commitments and practice, developing friendships and mitras coming along, Padma Siddhis, Amritsar, Sanjeeva, Dira Charita came along, Patrick was there early on, Bill, Pano, really, a lot of wonderful people have been with us a long time. I was really part of their journey, Dhiramani, of course, and many others. So those friendships were forming along the way and were wonderful. During my time as chair in Melbourne, and I saw very much the order. I mean, for me, it's not the only way, but one way for me was a path of responsibility. And that's obviously a bit of conditioning from being a doctor, but one can grow by taking on responsibilities and by taking a commitment, whether it's being a mitra convener or a class leader or class support or even a person at the door. We have a duty and a commitment to try to do something skillfully and helpfully and bring, in a way, some people into the Dharma. It's a responsibility. And of course, they can grow with time, and you can take on things like being on a committee or being the chair or treasurer and so on. But in the 9.5 years as chair in Melbourne, this is pre-David Street, this is all Fifth Street, we got pretty busy. We even had 5 years with a city in a centre in the city in Little Lonsdale Street. One of our benefactors, Lindsay Falvey, who's a co-author of that little book we put together, Buddhism Briefly Explained. He and his wife at the time offered us a prime real estate in the centre of Melbourne to open up a day centre, which we did. And we renovated this place and we got it open, and we had it running mostly for day courses and some early evening courses in parallel with the Brunswick Centre. And we also had a little group in the Dandenong Ranges, Segway Dantachitta, Maitripala and many others, who got together in Emerald. And there's a little activity centre there, and I just came across this program from 2005, and we've got there City, Brunswick, Dandenong Ranges. So we had these three things going all at once in 2005. So we had quite a broad reach, and you can imagine we were rather busy. And anyhow, the city centre wound down for a couple of main reasons. We were starting to get stretched to man both centres, to keep people in both centres, and also Lindsay and his wife parted their ways, and they were settling all their property, so they gave us the right of first refusal to buy Little Lonsdale Street. And I must say it was a very good price, but we sat down as a committee, and this was actually filmed by Surya Prabha, the guy who does all the documentation, the movement. Yeah, he was there at the time. He actually filmed that meeting, and Sudaya was there. She was visiting us at the time. And as a committee, we decided that Little Lonsdale Street was not going to be fit for all of our purposes for various reasons. So we decided to let go of that wonderful offer from Lindsay and his wife and decide just to relocate and focus with Brunswick for the time being, including Dandenong Ranges. So that was the end of our city centre, but we made many friends there, did a lot of courses and classes there as well. And they were exciting times as well. And along the way, I was invited to be part of the preceptor team training men for ordination in Australia and New Zealand. I became part of that team. And a few people had asked me to be their preceptors. And like all things, some people come and they go for all sorts of reasons. But um, probably about 2010 or so, I think it was, maybe up it was asked me about then. And that came to fruition in 2014. And I'm now as part of the College of Public Preceptors, where we're responsible around the world for keeping our standards of training at a certain level uniform across the tree route in the world for both men and women. And my Tripala here is also a public preceptor, and likewise Buddhist before us. So more responsibilities, and it's an interesting balanced responsibility because I always have to keep that mindfulness, that samprajanya of knowing, why am I doing this? What's this related to the spiritual impulse or to the bodhisattva ideal? Or how am I trying to help people by being in this meeting or looking at this agenda and so on? So it's a very important exercise of samprajanya, or the overarching sense of mindfulness of purpose. So always a very good practice. The other thing I've learned a lot about the order is that we come into the order with a lot of ideals, which is essential. We can't really progress to anything without ideals, but we also have to have a good understanding of ourselves. And myself, like I think everyone else, we go through life in a progressive process, hopefully progressive, of increasing self-awareness. And with that self-awareness comes impulses, our fears, our inhibitions, our views, and starting to make some sort of shape of them with a more skillful light of the Dharma and Sila or ethics, and that way make more positive progress within the Sangha, for the Sangha. And look, that process is ongoing for me, and I appreciate all the help I get from friends. And sometimes there's quite explicit and overt expressions of how I can see myself more clearly, or how I can help myself in some way. If I'm having a preceptor review report or my review for entry into the College of Preceptors, a lot of people will write to me about me. And that's certainly a very valuable learning exercise. But I also have dialogue almost daily with friends I live with, Padma City here, of course, and Buddhist, and all my friends around the centre. And the world has been opened up, of course, with electronics, internet, and Zoom and Skype and so on. So that's wonderful to keep all those other friendships alive in the Sangha. And also my friends outside Sangha, they are very valuable as well. Some going back to my school days in Adelaide, also medical school, medical friends, and also some family, of course. So life is very rich in that way. Meeting the order en masse is always a fantastic thing, I've found. Conventions are something wonderful. We come together in great numbers. And I remember some exquisite moments of going to a convention in England. We went to the secondary school and had this huge gym hall there. It was all draped on the inside with these blue drapes, and a massive stupa was in there. And had all the flowers and the lights there, hundreds of cushions and mats for us to sit on. I'd come in just as people were starting to meditate. I'd got in a little bit late from where I'd ever come from. And I went in from the ante-room, the change room, so to speak, for the gym, through the curtains and into the meditation space. And I walked into this soft, warm atmosphere of deep, deep peace, where hundreds of men and women were seated around the stupa, meditating. And it was remarkable. I almost floated into this room and found a cushion, and then just settled straight down into a reverie of metta. A remarkable experience. And one could even imagine then what the pujas were like, with hundreds of people chanting and circumambulating the stupa. More was to come in conventions in Bodh Gaya. I've been twice to Bodh Gaya in northeast India for order conventions which have held there over the years. And that's, of course, where we go to the Vajrasana, the seat of the enlightenment. And there's a Bodhi tree there, and there's the great monument there, the Mahabodhi temple. And that's a remarkable experience again. I would recommend everyone go to Bodh Gaya at some time to uh, visit the Mahabodhi temple and sit under the Bodhi tree. And you mix with Buddhists from all over the world in their throngs, and there's such an air of reverence and devotion. There are people all around the tree, in all different diameters and perimeters, prostrating towards the tree in the Vajrasana, all in their own time, in their own way. And there's chants from all languages, there's groups in different cloths and robes, there's cacophony, there's dogs barking and fighting. It's still happening. It's an amazing place. But it's still got a very, very special atmosphere no matter what is happening there. And the last time I was there, I think 2 or 3 years ago, there was a bomb explosion or a threat of a bomb after Dalai Lama was visiting. And suddenly security ramped up and we were going through checkpoints and soldiers were there and, we're having to show bags and they were going through, the X-ray machines, if they're working. You never know in India, never know. But you just assume something. And so it just added an extra precious moments to our time at Bodh Gaya. And the other wonderful thing about going to India is meeting the people from the Indian wing of the order. Most of you know that we have perhaps a third, maybe more, of our order is in India. A lot of them from the Ambedkar movement, not all, but it's a very, very large movement. And the Indians just have such uninhibited devotion and love for the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha. And they are just so naturally generous, no matter how poor they might be or how little they have, they just give. Always smiling, always devotional, always grateful, and they're wonderful hosts. The conventions we had were very well organised, beautifully put together. And the food, 3 meals a day, I don't know how they did it, how they fed 600 people on time with fantastic food every day, but they did it. It's just amazing how well it's done. And of course, when you're in that part of India, there are other wonderful sites of pilgrimage too, and I've been privileged to have had a couple of excursions and pilgrimage there. And being part of an order too, there's a natural trust, as you would be as a mitra or as a friend associated with our particular movement. When you made yourself known, people just take you into their homes, take you under their wing, take you into their hearts, their trust, and just give you things, show you around, doors open, and you just have a wonderful time. Entry into another culture, and of course into the land of the Buddha. So they have been very, very important times in me in the order. And the other thing that I've enjoyed related to that is the very easy access to the elders of the order, including Sangharakshita. I mean, it was always pretty straightforward to meet Sangharakshita, even though he had an enormous range of friends, a huge correspondence over his years with people. He always seemed to find time to meet people. And likewise, his great disciples like Subhutis and Dhamma Dinners and Paramis and the Santras and all the other people who have helped shape the movement over the years to what it is now. They have time to meet you and they make time. And it's been very, very inspiring to be a part of these. And also to be a part of seeing new people come to the centre. I'm doing an introductory course at the moment on Wednesday nights, which I've loved doing for many years. And it's great to see Rachel pop up, who's been on the course there for a while, the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And it's been great to see people walking the doors for the first time and for the 1000th time. And trust and friendship just keeps growing. And we share a lot in the order. It's a wonderful opportunity to be generous in the order or in the movement more broadly, because there is a principle of common purse that people might have heard of, that as we try to live closer as a community, and let's take, most of us would have had the experience of a retreat. We'll go on retreat and we're all in this together. We've gone remotely, we've made the time. We start sharing things. We share ourselves. We might share some object, something we need, or someone needs an extra jacket or blanket that just automatically comes out. We just start sharing. We share the kitchen duties, the cleaning duties, and we share each other's stories, hearts, confidences. We start to become of one mind and one heart on retreat. And one of our ideals is surely to let that spirit of true spiritual community grow from the most intense and focused of a retreat. Let it grow out into our wider community around Brunswick and all the other suburbs and the whole Tree Ratner community of Australia, New Zealand, and the rest of the world. And that will happen if we have our hearts open and have our awareness there and our attention sure. That will happen. And it's already happening. But like everything, it's one of those rooms that can always get bigger. So that's also one of the things I enjoy about the order, is the sharing and the trust at all levels of life. Over the years, I've been privileged to be able to give all sorts of things to the order besides the things I've mentioned, even the material things, being able to help out here and there with projects and schemes and so on, help get things over the line financially here and there. There's always good things happening, and it's great to be able to help out materially. Tea service, as Sangha has mentioned, has been another way which I really loved to share with Sangha members. We can do it 1-to-1 or 1-to-9. I do it in centre, I do it at home, do it on retreat. Pretty well anywhere you can boil water, I'll make tea. So that's been a wonderful thing to share. I know a lot of people here tonight have enjoyed tea with me and I with them. So may there be many more bowls. Just got to be a little bit more patient, just wait a bit longer and we'll get there. But at the moment, Padma City is the principal recipient of my tea bowl of a morning. What else can I say about the order life? Just coming back is that point of awareness as human beings, and that's something that I think many order members, and certainly myself, have had to meet as we come into the order. Sometimes it's easy to think because we have the ideals, we have these 10 precepts, we do a lot of training, that our behavior will always be harmonious and easy. It's not true. We're still human beings, and most of us are on this side of enlightenment. So we're still getting there, and we're still doing running repairs on our ethics or our motives or our views and our behaviors. And that is something that it's just ongoing practice. And again, when we have close friendships and trusting friendships, our friends keep us oriented towards the way we really want to go and the way we want to be. I'm very grateful for an ordered chapter that I'm in. There's a group of men who meet together regularly, as the women do in their chapters, where we can speak about our ethical breaches, our slip-ups, our misdemeanors, confess them in a sense of shame, and have trusting hearts hear it, listen, and accept it. And there's no wallpapering over it. That's the way it is. But once one's confessed it in the company of like-minded and like-hearted individuals who are trusting and of noble inclination themselves, it becomes lighter and it becomes more aware, I don't want to do that again. And it just makes it so much easier to take the straightforward path from there on any of the ethical directions. So that's another one of the great things the order has given, is opened up this ancient Buddhist practice of confession within the context of Dharma fellowship, Kalyana Mitrata. And of course, just straight Dharma itself, I'm always learning, because after a while, it's not as if we have to learn more Dharma. It's taking really what we already know more deeply. So the challenge for me in my time in life and transitioning from a pretty physical, medical and order life to now an order life principally and less medicine, but with more order responsibilities, is to maintain time to go deeper with meditation and reflection and friendship. And it does take time to think about things, one's moods, thoughts, ideas, impulses, ethics, and so on. takes time to think through, sometimes to talk over, and to cultivate those positive things in meditation, such as loving kindness, compassion, equanimity, and so on. These do take time and conditions. And being used to taking responsibility and saying yes, it's very easy to say yes to a lot of things and suddenly have much less time to meditate, much less time to reflect, and so on. And that's that. There are challenges in all phases of life, I think, whether it's just as a human being going from child to adolescent to adult to parent to so on. We all take those steps of responsibility and commitment. But along the way, as a Buddhist, I need to be mindful of my purpose and keep those conditions in place to help me go deeper with the Dharma that I have learned. So it's very, very important. And yes, I was stymied like everyone else was with the pandemic. I had plans for a long solitary in August, September. That just simply went out off the board, like many people's plans did. And I've just had to say, well, what can I do then to deepen my Dharma in these conditions and situations? And I've been lucky to have the sort of household I have, the fellows I have, meditation space. I've got some parks nearby. I can find nature and ride my bike or walk. And I can have some solitude either in my room, meditation room, or garden as well. So I've got those opportunities to make the most of them. So I might just wind up there. I just had a little poem that I'd just like to share with you, just to finish off on a poetic note. I could have brought it in earlier on when I was talking about my transition from Melbourne back from ordination years to Cambridge, 1992. But I'll just leave on this poetic note. It's a poem about Sangharakshita, for Sangharakshita, and I actually handed it to him in 1992 when I saw him before I went to Guhyaloka. And I wrote this poem somewhere between England and Ireland in New Year's 1992. Some of you might remember a little collection of his aphorisms called Peace is a Fire. Peace is a Fire. Wonderful little set of aphorisms of Sangharakshita. So this poem for Sangharakshita, and dedicated, of course, to his memory, is entitled After Peace is a Fire. Like a man of straw, I stand before your raging fire of peace. This form and name are now a flame burning without cease. In the wheel of life turns a world of strife, of fleeting joys and pain. Yet the Dharma you teach has let me reach for the norm, immune and the sane. The spiral path I aspire, you have inspired with noble living proof of human progress on the Buddha's path, that one of beauty and truth. My small candle you've lit, I dearly cradle among stars a minute light. Yet that flame will rise, and in me, the wise, a Buddha sun ignite. The man I was before is now no more, consumed by fires of peace. Another man transformed and quickening to find from all desires released. Thank you.